Hey there, welcome to the very first podcast of the T-minus 365 day series. And if you have watched any of the 7 episodes that we've released thus far, and part of that has resonated with you, then maybe you and I are quite similar. That you feel what you were supposed to do, where you are in life, is not exactly where you had planned. In many of the aspirations that you've set, whether it be New Year's resolutions or just life resolutions, have slipped you by, and day by day, week by week, month by month, year by year, decade by decade, your life is slipping from you, and there is just this sense of a urgency that sometimes hits you with you should be in a better place, you should tap into more of what you have been gifted with, which is a finite time as conscious matter, and maybe that might get lost in the hustling and bustling of every day of serving the almighty corporate dollar or whatever currency that is native to you, or in my case, where I found myself here in Bangalore, India, away from everyone that I have held dear or treasured in my life, everyone that I love, everyone that I created wonderful memories with and would like to create more wonderful memories with. And not just not in the same city, and I'm not even in the same country, I'm not even in the same continent, as I flew here from South Florida in the United States all the way here to this side of the world to work on business matters, to make a name for myself, to provide a financial means of comfort and protection for those that I treasure. And at the same time, I saw the repetitiveness of my day, the humdrum and the mechanistic means of just going from one day to another, and not being able to differentiate, did I do that yesterday or last week, or each day or each meal was just like one and the same, and time was slipping by. And out of all of that, surging within me, and as well as tremendous amount of mental and emotional quandaries about life and where I was headed, and my compass of what should guide me in life. And I knew very early on in life that it shouldn't be dollars, it shouldn't be monetary gains, but I knew that it was a necessary evil to get to where I wanted to be, which was not having to serve the almighty dollars, rather to remove the shackles of responsibility that I, as the eldest son of my family, who my parents are both aging and descending into ill health, and my 2 younger brothers growing up and needing the support to do what they would really like to do. And I want to I want to altruistically serve that purpose, and at the same time, I want to liberate my family from any financial struggles, and then be able to actually just do the things that bring me joy, which actually doesn't cost a single penny. And so, out of all of that turmoil, I realized that I'm spending my days in a way that I do not believe in. And at some point that may resonate with all of us, but due to the impending bills, due to the family that we must take care of, due to the lifestyle that we are already trapped in, we can't fathom doing something that brings our hearts joy, brings our minds peace, that if I live my life in the way that I believe, then death is something that I can meet with a feeling of I have lived my life, not, oh, I was going to live my life. I had to take care of this and then that and then this and then that, and actually never ended up getting around to it. So being away from everyone that I ever loved and everyone that brings me joy, and chasing the almighty dollar, which does not bring me joy, does not bring me any amount of joy. In fact, on the day that I have crossed 6 figures in my bank account, was one of the worst days of me realizing how how little this meant to me, and how much that I'm doing this as a humble servant of those that I look to serve. That none of the dollars that I'm working for are for me, and which I don't even want them to be for me. It's for the responsibilities that I have and the directions that they need to go in. They already have a destination even before it hits my bank account or cryptocurrency wallet. So I felt like I was wasting away my life, and so I had a thought of what if my life were to suddenly end? Would I have been proud of how I have conducted my time? And although I've gotten to accomplish a lot, some might say, quite a lot, considering that I was born in the outskirts of a third world country inside of a mud house, that I shouldn't have gotten even the remote chance to do the things that I have done. But nevertheless, I do know that there is so much more that I'm capable of doing or capable of expressing that I'm not right now. And so out of all of this, concoction, I wondered how I would conduct my life if I only had a finite amount of time to live, which very obviously, I think we can all conclude that we do have a finite amount of time, but we don't know what that finite amount is. Is it 10 years? Is it 50 years? Is it 80 years of life? Is it 2 years? Is it 365 days? And that's where the notion of what if I had enough time to make the changes that I've always said that I would at some point after I got this done, because they're all logically justifiable of why I should not start my passions, why I should not start focusing on myself, on my well-being, on my mental, emotional pursuits. Rather, it was, that can wait. And so I asked myself how I would conduct my life if I only had a year left to live. And out of that, which a week was too short, a month was still not enough. A day, of course, I tried that thought experiment of what if you woke up and somehow were told that when the clock strikes midnight, your life is over. Because I've always been conscious of my mortality, always been conscious that I will only be here for a short time. Like Drake says, I'm here for a short time, not a long time. I don't even know the lyrics. So that's how much I'm out of the loop of what's trending. But nevertheless, I did want to try this thought experiment and try to conduct my life in a way that had some urgency, because if we were all conscious of the ticking of our clock, I think we would all be conscious, because like the movie In Time, we all have a time that is expiring, an hourglass in which the sands of times are pouring millisecond by millisecond, and there is not much we can do to alter if there is a fate, or even if we are granted the full extent of human life span, which let's just say is 100 years, let's just say that in a couple of decades it's 200 years. Nevertheless, it is finite. The question is, what do we do with that time? And all the things that I wanted to accomplish, whether it was having a six-pack abs by 18, which due to schooling, I was like, okay, that can wait. I'll focus on my schooling because my family really needs me to succeed. My father worked 2 full-time jobs. My mom, who did not know English, just did everything she could to best help our family through either making sure that me and my brothers did my homework. And so the uncalculatable amount of sacrifices that my parents have made put that ambition of I'm going to make them proud and forego my own pursuits. And nevertheless, which is the third time I said nevertheless, I became a very good student and got into medical school, and one thing after another, just the ongoing pursuits. But ultimately, I did drop out due to my father having a heart attack, which left the family with very little money. And I didn't want my family to go through that while I went through 3 more years of medical school and 4 more years of residency to become an anesthesiologist. So I've always put myself second, is what I'm trying to convey. And here in the isolation of India, and working still to provide for not myself, but rather to serve the people that I cherish, I wondered how I would live my life if I only had 365 days left. And that idea resonated in my mind, and I said, well, what kind of things would I focus on? What kind of pursuits would I go on? And what areas of development would I focus on? Not to impress the world, not to serve the masters of money or the shining buildings of capitalism, which is, and I bring that up because that is what 99.99% of people wake up to serve, is the god of money, which even I unfortunately serve that, and I wish that wasn't the case, because as much as I am a marketer, as much as I am an online entrepreneur, as much as I pursue success, all of that turns me off. All of that is vain. All of that is just man-made things that don't fill up the emptiness that I think all humans carry with them, and they fill it up with all this junk that leaves them in a state of depression, a state of isolation, even as a celebrity, even as the grandest of everything that you can achieve in this man-made world, you can still feel like something is missing. And I realized that very early on. So all of that cooking up inside of me has led to that thought of how would I live my life if I got to dictate it, because the urgency of actually setting a timer for when my life should expire. And with that, I was marinating in my mind. And one day I went to the office, as I normally do, and it was time, and I worked overnight at the office here in Bangalore to serve the U.S. Markets, which it's the reverse time zones. And so I was having my breakfast, which is like in the middle of the night, and during that time I was watching a lot of philosophy to try to ease my mind of my actual pursuits of what I wanted to spend my mental energy pondering about. And the pre-roll YouTube ad was about this celebration of the spring, the colors of spring, called Holi, as something that I had seen when I was in university, something that I had put up on my wall of aim of all these pictures of things that I wanted to accomplish. And I was like, oh wow, Holi is something that I'll get to do, considering that I'm in India and that's where Holi resonates greatest. And so I was like, wait, why did I just see an ad on Holi? Maybe it's nearby, or the timing for that is close. And so I looked up when is Holi this year, and I saw that it was a few days away. So then I was talking to someone, and I was like, wait, is Holi celebrated here in Bangalore? And they said not as big as it is in some of the northern parts. And with that, I immediately made a decision that in a matter of the next 36 to 48 hours, that I'd be heading to the north side of India to celebrate Holi, something that I've always wanted to do, and hopefully refreshes my mind that I'm actually doing something that I genuinely want to do, not just to serve the almighty dollar. So with that, I needed someone to actually chaperone me, as I did not know the language of the northern parts of India. Nor do I know the language of any of the native Indian languages. Of course, English is pretty dominant here, so I can definitely get by. But that's when the videographer and editor that was helping me with the content for the business that I'm here to work on, I asked him if he'd be willing to go with me. He, by the way, is Akash, someone that I'm extremely grateful for, someone that you'll get to meet, someone that does so much on the back end, from episode 1 to now even recording this podcast, to editing it, to this project would not be possible if not for the dedication of Akash. So I appreciate him greatly. And with that, I asked him if he'd be willing to go with me to capture holy, which I didn't at the time know that I would be tying holy as the initiation of this concept. And so he said yes, and I was like, cool, let's get ready. We have to leave very soon. So with that, the day ended. Later on, I went home and I began to still mull over everything that I was going shuffling internally about how I'm spending my time away from my youngest brother, who's 15, growing up without me, my parents. I miss them dearly because I know that their time is short, as so is mine. I wish that I had already made it financially so that I wouldn't have to feel this way. And that guilt was also eating me up inside. And I needed an outlet. And so as I was trying to fall asleep around 8, 9 a.m. To then get back up and go back to the office, this idea kept me up. And I thought, and then I was looking into more of what Holi represents. What is it? The Festival of Colors. What exactly does that mean? And I found out that it's the festival of spring's color, and spring is the dawning of a new season, the beginning of life. And I was like, wow, what a great symbolic initiating point of this concept. And that's when I jumped out of bed, opened my laptop, and started trying to put a name or a title to everything that I was pondering about the urgency of time and the squandering of time that I felt like I was doing, which, by the way, I call it squandering because it serves a man-made purpose, and I don't care how grand that purpose is. I just, that doesn't resonate with me, especially when it has to do with money. And I know it sounds quite contradictory, knowing me outside of these 365-day series, that I'm a marketer, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm trying to make money online. All of that is a necessity, not a desire, not something that I aim to do. So with that, I was trying to find a name for this concept, and I came across a few different variations, such as my final 365 days. I try to find that on GoDaddy and try to get the domain. That was available, but the YouTube name was taken. I also looked up my last 365 days, which I believe that was available, but I thought about it a bit more, and the concept of a countdown began, and I was like, well, that's T minus is the countdown, and then I put it all together, T minus 365 days, and that really began to sit right. And fortunately, all the domains and handles were available, so I definitely secured that. And I was actually walking around, pacing back and forth in my room, just mulling over this concept and trying to piece it all together. And ultimately, I did fall asleep, didn't get too much sleep. But at the same time, Akash was working on getting the flights, getting the hotels, and a lot of things went wrong that could have prevented this. For example, we were supposed to leave that night, but when Akash booked the tickets, due to just due to the flight being the early next morning, he did it for the following day. So meaning that we would get there a day late, and already that was on the wrong footing. And I was like, oh man, that's probably not a good sign. But then I was like, you know what, I'm gonna make this happen. And I told Akash, even if we need to pay again to book another ticket for today, because we can change the date or get a refund. So we booked a second ticket, so paid twice for the correct date, and then got everything together, packed, and headed to the office. And as the taxi had already arrived, and I had my suitcase full of some clothes, but a lot of camera gear, that's when I introduced Akash to the concept of what I had in mind. And I said, I'll explain everything in the car, but right now, just shoot me packing up the suitcase and getting it into the taxi, and then there we could talk. And so he did that, and in the car, in the long journey to the airport, that's where I explained this idea that was seeding inside of me, that was sprouting and kind of trying to gain life through me, or was at least keeping me up so that I might be able to birth this idea and manifest it. And instantly it resonated with him, because he too had a lot of ambitions that he was putting off. And I was like, exactly, that's what I'm referring to. The fact that we all believe we have a lot more time than we actually do. Our behaviors of lethargy, of procrastination, of the lack of urgency suggests that we're immortal beings. If you look at how we spend our days, it would suggest, oh, clearly they have such a vast amount of time that they're not doing the things that they find important, and they're delaying it because they have so much time, when in actuality we do not. And so that reconfirmed the belief in me that this must be created because of people like us and everyone that has something inside of them, that they have this feeling of guilt that they're not bringing to life. And so anyway, we get to the airport, and I guess perhaps in the midst of shooting, in the midst of narrowly getting there, luggage that needed to be rechecked twice because it was full of camera gear, we missed our flight just by minutes. And that was an fortunate thing that has happened, because by missing that flight, we had to be pushed to the next flight, and that led to us actually shooting a lot of content inside of the airport, which is how episode 1 begins. And that was quite apropos, running through the airport, trying to escape. By the way, there was a hidden line on episode 1 that was chopped off in the post edits that was the opening line of episode 1 that completely adds a whole new eerie twist or eerie feeling to the entire episode that will play for you. But just know that there was something that was cut off the first opening line, and it just has to be played. I can't say it. It has to be played to best capture it. So we have that version, which was unfortunately not the version that was uploaded. So we realized that afterwards. But nevertheless, which is actually the 4th time I've said nevertheless, we got on the second flight, made it to Jaipur, which is a northern city of India, and we were met with some obstacles, such as the hotel that we were trying to book into. They saw that I was not a local resident, and due to a virus that's going on in India, in China, as well as now India and the rest of the world, the COVID-19 coronavirus, they did not permit me to actually stay in that hotel, and thus Akash didn't stay in that hotel. We went to another hotel, and then another hotel, then finally was able to book into that one, which actually worked out very nicely. And then we were extremely exhausted, so we passed out, thinking that we would sleep for a few hours. And by the time we woke up, because we hadn't finished shooting for day number 1, it was like 6 p.m. And when I got up, and the reality hit that, wait, you want to record for 365 days in a row, and day number 1 is not going right. Day number 1 is you're at 6 p.m. and you haven't shot the rest of the scenes or whatever is going to happen that day. And that's where a feeling of anxiety came, like, oh man, it's a good thing that we haven't told anyone. It's a good thing that only I and Akash know about it. If we need to withdraw now is the time. But fortunately, we did leave the hotel and began exploring, and that's where we caught a lot of the fire shots. That's where we captured all the fire shots, and made it into a great adventurous evening. And over the past few days, past days after that, that's when I began to add more pieces of it through more contemplation. Like at first, it was going to be, each episode was going to be 365 seconds, which would have made it over 6 minutes, which is way too long. And after more consideration, I said, let's make it 3 minutes and 21 seconds, still representing the fact that it's a countdown, 3, 2, 1. And so each of the 365 videos will be 3 minutes and 21 seconds. And then also the idea of a countdown as the opener or intro to each episode, and each episode being one less than the other previous day, all these things begin to layer, and before we knew it, we were being consistent. First day was just Jaipur and the fire. Second day was the actual Holi event, which was not as grand as the previous years due to the virus and due to the governments actually just not allowing anyone to coordinate. And we still managed to get some great sceneries and had a great Holi experience in the midst of all of this. And then day number 3, the Maharaja, was an amazing experience, a wild journey. That should have been actually split up into 2 or 3 days, but had a great experience doing all of that. I mean, I actually, for the first time, played a flute for a cobra. I did feed pigeons in different parts of the world, but still, that was pretty cool. The scene where they all flew up, I absolutely love that. Third, rode an elephant for the first time in my life. Wow. And at that moment, I was like, this is why we're doing this. I would not have seen or experienced any of India should I have been just going to the office in my Airbnb, which is what I was doing already for like 3 months. And I was like, this is like, I could be anywhere. It's like I'm stuck in a cocoon or office cocoon, and I need to break free. So that was amazing. And then after that, we went to go see and feed some monkeys, which was, I did that in other places as well, like Bali, but it was cool to do that in India. And so that became episode 1, 2, and 3. We were very much aware that the episodes were, of course, going to be very, very interesting, but what was going to happen, how are we going to stay consistent, and what were we going to do to keep things interesting once we got back to Bangalore, once we got back to the office, which was day number 4, called Chaos. And that's where our creativity really came into play. And we did turn that into something. We showed the humdrum of everyday life. And also that day, we had to cancel a major event that we were going to be doing in Toronto as a company due to the coronavirus. So that's why also I titled it Chaos. The next day, we also had to come up with another creative idea, as we didn't want to shoot in the office every single day. That's kind of like, what the problem was that began all of this. And so we went out and went to a nearby park that I knew existed, but never went there due to just work. And so finally, that day we went and had an amazing experience. By the way, all the shots are missed. Not because I'm horrible at basketball, but to drive home the point of imperfection and the fact that one doesn't need to be perfect to have an amazing life. And then the next day we found a park that was also very nearby, but never explored over the past several months, which had an amazing scenic vibe to it. And I felt really in tune with nature. And the next day was Wisdom, which was the day that we went and explored some restaurants a restaurant, and went to a shop where I got this book by Satguru, which is a great thinker of India, and I have a lot more of that to finish up reading. And this is what I bought on day number 1, actually, day number 1. So a lot more interesting things that have arose from being consistent. And now that we have not only shot 7 days, but posted 7 days, I think that has given us a framework that this is possible, because literally you have to do those 7 days just again for 52 times in more creative and dynamic ways. And I'm very curious to see where this goes. And I hope that parts of it resonates with something that you might also feel at times in your life, and understand that we're working towards a more fulfilling life through a character that is hit with that realization that life is a ticking timer, and the sands of his life are ticking away, which again, they all are for all of us. It's a matter of, are we conscious of it, and how do we delegate our time? Just like you, I and the rest of the team are quite curious to see where this project goes. I know that there's many eyes on us from the office, from our friends, from our circle of influence that is looking at this project, to the point where some of them have even reached out to me and asked, Sal, are you all right? Like, what's your health like? As are you sick? Are you dying? So they may have missed the point of the concept, and we hope to make everyone proud of what we are creating here. It is one of the most engaging things, if not the most engaging thing, that I have ever participated in and creating. A friend of mine, after seeing episode 1, messaged me and saying, "Oh, cool! Is this a new project?" And I philosophically replied back by saying, "This is the project," kind of suggesting that everything that I've been working towards or training myself in the art of has led me to this point where I finally have something that is not for the sake of revenue, although I do believe that there is going to be areas for that, but it's a means in itself. It is an expression of a human life. It is an expression of all of the ambitions and ideologies that we admire in the abstract. We admire in the concept of thinking that we will change, thinking that we can be better, thinking that we have potential, thinking that there's a better version of ourselves, but never really bringing that to life. That's why all of the New Year's resolutions or the life resolutions tend to be faded out. But what if we were hit with a sense of daily reminders of our urgencies to live? Because once the final sand of our hourglass falls, that will be the end. And with that, I will conclude the very first of what is going to be 52 podcasts of the T-365 day series. Hopefully this gives you some context into the first 7 episodes, and you're looking forward to the next 7. Until then, I'll catch you on episode number 8.